Alexander. After a heated debate yesterday in the Greek Parliament, the Greek Prime Minister sent the message that he's going to veto any future EU decisions if the European Union does not stand in solidarity with Greece or whatever the notion is these days on the refugee issue. On the same time, the authorities also declare that on the northern border, the border with Fyrom, the authorities of the other country do not accept anyone who is not a holder of a valid passport, ID, or birth certificate. Actually, they say they don't accept the identification forms issued by the Greek authorities or Frontex. I'm not sure who is the issuer of those forms. And the Greek minister came here in Brussels some hours ago, stating that Greece is not going to end up like Lebanon, even in the scenario where this would be funded by the European Union. I do not really understand how this whole picture fits in the action plan and the plan for the refugees, but could you please clarify what of all these things is true or false? Thanks.
Well, as you said, the Greek minister said this upon arrival to the council meeting, which is ongoing, and there will be a press conference afterwards. So what I would suggest is to direct questions on the content of the discussions of the council to the participants of that meeting, including, of course, Commissioner Avramopoulos, once the council meeting comes to an end. And I don't think it's useful for me here in parallel to the council meeting to start interpreting individual statements. Correct.
Then maybe you should clarify just the part concerning the Fyrom authorities accepting or not accepting forms issued by Frontex and the Greek authorities that the immigrants or the refugees are carrying with them, denying or accepting entry into that country. Just that, because it's technical.
Look, I don't have, personally, I'm not aware exactly of developments there. I'm looking at Natasha whether there's a utility, a usefulness in setting out, now maybe bilaterally with him afterwards. Or do you want to come? Natasha will give us the latest on developments on the...
Look, I mean, the legal position about border crossings is clear and has been repeatedly set out by the Commission. As regards cooperation in the Western Balkans, I think you know that this is something that we are working very hard to achieve and to avoid having unilateral actions taken. And this was the content of the discussions at the European Council. This was discussed this morning by the ministers who, along the Western Balkans route, who met this morning in a breakfast ahead of the Justice Council. And then the discussions are ongoing as we speak, also on this matter. And the Commission's role in this is to facilitate the dialogue and ensure that we are prepared for all scenarios.
Thank you. Now that you're here, Natasha, I think you will get a few more questions. Yes, please. This time from the other side of the press room.
Natasha, this idea of a referendum in Hungary about relocation, I mean, looks like it's another vulnerance to the rule of law. What does the Commission think about this?
So we have, of course, heard about this referendum idea via the press. We, however, fail to understand how it would fit into the decision-making process, which was agreed to by all member states, including Hungary, under the EU treaties. But of course, it appears that the domestic debate on this issue is ongoing and not yet concluded, and so we will wait for clarifications to be provided in this context.
Thank you. Anyone else from Natasha? Yes, please.
Hey, Natasha, a couple of days ago you said that Greece is facing a kind of humanitarian crisis. I want to know if what are the figures, what are the facts that you are working with to say that? Is there anything new that we don't know?
I'm not going to get into figures now. I think all you need to know is that the Commission is in very close contact with the Greek authorities, that we have people from the Commission, from DG Home, from DG ECHO on the ground working with the Greek authorities to identify what is going to be needed in the immediate future. This is what we call contingency planning, and we're also, as you already know, working on an initiative following up on the Council conclusions from the European Council conclusions, sorry, from last week on a humanitarian assistance mechanism inside the European Union.
Yes, please.
A follow-up on Hungary. Does the Commission consider that this Hungarian decision or the referendum is a kind of unilateral step which makes much more difficult the actions at European level? Because the Commission is always calling for more and more action at European level, and we have seen a kind of mushrooming of national decisions in the last few days. So do you think so that it could help the European Union to have a joint action? Thank you.
Look, I've already given the comment that I can give on this matter. The debate is still ongoing in Hungary. We're awaiting further clarifications, and we'll reserve value judgments until that time.
Absolutely. Yes, please.
En Hongrie aussi.
On Hungary as well, you say you don't understand how this can be part of the decision-making in the treaties. Does that mean there is issues outside the treaty? Or is it just a way of you're not understanding the approach? Well, until we get some clarifications about when referendum will take place, or what the question will be, I can't really decide whether or not it's going the legal nature of the referendum or not.
Here, if it's on Hungary, I can already tell you that we're not going to say more. But please, go ahead.
I'll take a shot at flogging the dead horse. No, it's just to draw, just to kind of understand what you've said. My assumption is then the Commission has not been notified by Hungary of a referendum or any other kind of move, and that your preliminary analysis is that this decision was taken QMV over at the Council based on a Commission proposal, and you don't see how it fits in, so it doesn't seem to have any legal substance that you can analyse at this early stage.
The statement I gave is a general one. You're obviously free to interpret it as you wish, but I will leave it as already given.
Bruno.
I noted that the Commission welcomed the NATO decision on a mission to the Aegean Sea, but I seem to remember the Greek Commissioner back on the 11th of February. I know his statements are sometimes slightly inconsistent with the pace of events, but he did very clearly say that what's happening in Greece is a humanitarian crisis. It's not a military problem, that we're dealing with human beings, not enemies. So I just wondered if you could explain to me how the Commission has changed its mind and tone since that declaration.
The Commission has not changed its mind, and we have not changed the tone. The person who welcomed the NATO mission this morning was indeed Commissioner Avramopoulos via tweet, and he passed the same message, and he's passing the same message at the Justice and Home Affairs Council this morning. The Commission supports the NATO initiative.
Yes, Bruno. Second shot.
So has the Commission sought undertakings that the military will treat refugees in the proper way? Because that's what he said his concern was.
We have been very closely involved in the setting up of the operation. We have High Representative Mogherini, who is in touch with Secretary General Stoltenberg. We have Commissioner Avramopoulos, who also met with Stoltenberg and is working with Frontex to ensure that cooperation between Greece, between Frontex, between the European Union is at the best that it can be.
Matthew, this time.